Hey everybody, I'm Oskari, CEO and founder of Ivan, a software company that's creating managed cloud services out of the best open source technologies. What we're doing is building the trusted open source data platform for everyone, and we have the privilege of working with a number of great brands around the globe and great people, of course, around the globe. And we've invited some of them to join us for discussion around leadership insights. So today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Micah, Director of Leadership and Learning Partnering at Delivery Hero. Micah is an influential figure in adult learning and leadership with a strong background in companies such as Booking.com and Delivery Hero, where he's currently working at. He's on the verge of earning his doctorate in adult learning and has already provided practical strategies to enhance leadership training programs. Micah, welcome to our discussion today. Would you like to now introduce you a little bit further and let us know what got you excited about this topic?
Nice. Thank you, Oskari. It's a pleasure to stop by, and thank you for the invite with Florian and team as well. It's really a pleasure to be able to talk about a topic like leadership development, which is very aligned to the work that I do. So thanks for the invite. I think, just outside of kind of the introduction there, I've been in this world of learning and leadership development a bit over 15 years now. And it's been a fun journey being able to work with really dynamic international companies along the way. And working in Europe the past few years, really enjoy being in Berlin with Delivery Hero now, going on 3 years. Before that was at Booking for going on 10 years as well, working in places like New York and Amsterdam. So it's been a fun journey. I'd like to say outside of that and outside of the academic work, really the two things I'm passionate about in life are food and travel. And so that's where Delivery Hero and Booking have been a nice mix for me as well. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excellent. And that's really cool. So, you work in a number of different places and cultures. So how could you say, these international experiences have influenced your own leadership approach, considering all the different contexts you encountered?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I think about my time in New York and then moving over to Amsterdam and Berlin, I think a couple of things that really have been significant for me is learning that it's always a learning journey. That I feel like, getting the opportunity to travel, whether it's international assignments, picking up and moving as an expat, or, traveling internationally for holiday and for vacation, there's always learning in it, right? And I think we can all say that. For me, it's helped me with being able to listen, being able to empathize with people from different perspectives of my own. And I have a mentor in my head right now who always used to say to me that travel and international experiences have a way of keeping us grounded and always learning, right? Whether it's through the successes we have in international business, or if it's some of the awkward moments that have created learnings for us or challenges along the way.
You said something really interesting there about awkward moments. Is there any particular experience that you could share with us on that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the one that kind of comes to my mind first, I was living and working in New York at the time. I was at Booking.com and traveling throughout Latin America quite often. But I remember one of my first trips in the region. Being in New York, there was this concept of time being very linear. So, if a workshop started at 9 o'clock, I was ready before and thinking, okay, we'll kick off at 9. But, I learned quickly that time isn't always linear like it is where I was living. In that part of the world, it's more about events. And, when people come together, that's when things start. So that particular day, it started at 9:45, which actually was a stressful moment for me to wait those additional 45 minutes. But now I look back and I see how those kind of learnings really kind of shape your approach and being able to understand the differences that make things fun, But an awkward thing that turned into a great opportunity at the end of the day. Yeah.
Very cool. So you are working on your doctorate on adult learning. Could you share some key insights from your research, along maybe with some practical do's and don'ts for enhancing leadership training programs?
Yeah, I think when I think about the work that I've been doing in the program and the studies that I've done, there's one of the things that's really jumped out to me is this idea that learning happens holistically. So it's not just about training. It's not just about providing really good e-learnings for people who don't like necessarily live workshops, but it's about creating a little bit of everything and empowering people to be at the driver's seat of their own learning. So we really do that in the programs that we design for leaders. I'm a big believer in the 70-20-10 model of learning, that 10%, according to research, of how we learn is by formalized education. So then what happens in the other 90%? So 20%, according to this model, is around relationships, getting coaching or mentors along the way who can support us. And then 70% is around what we do day in and day out, trying out what we learned from a coach or what we learned from a training, what worked, what didn't work. So having that moment of reflection and then trying on something new next time to learn more. And that's the majority of how we learn. And I think that's one of the key things that I subscribe to and I've learned about in my program. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's fascinating to hear the stories from individuals on how they've grown and learned in their roles. And often I think from the outside, we may hear a lot about this 10% piece, but the 90% is highlighted so much in different individual stories. Now today, of course, in the evolving tech landscape, we see AI popping up everywhere and AI influencing leadership development, among other things. How are you looking into this, and are there any specific AI applications that particularly catch your interest in this context?
Oh, yeah. Really good questions. This one is the one that I think even yesterday morning, I was in a summit, an HR summit here in Berlin with people from, different organizations in the region. And this was one of the hot topics as well. So it's really fun to be able to play in this space at work and be able to learn about, what's working well in the AI space, what are things that we're still, playing around with and experimenting with. One of the things that I think about is, how AI has really helped us, my team at the org that I'm in now at Delivery Hero. And for me, it's two sides. There's automation, making things easier. And then there's also making things higher quality. And so we have bots that make things easier, which I'm very thankful for. When it comes to supporting leaders, having reminders of completing manager evaluations as a part of the performance process can be very helpful. But outside of that, do you need any support on writing evaluation or having a performance conversation that's effective, that's focused on growth? Sign up for these workshops or, check out these e-learning resources. So we've been doing that in the bot space, which has been really nice to support leaders with learning and making that a bit more automated. And then outside of that, I think gamification and simulations has been really great. So being able to get people to have shared experiences in how they learn instead of it just being a lecture style can bring learning to life. One of the partners that we work with, Forio, who has a simulation around climbing Mount Everest. So getting groups and teams together. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to think about, in this simulation experience. What are the roles that people play in this simulation? You have a photographer, you have a leader of the group, different roles. And then there's rapid decision-making that's in the simulation. So you have different weather patterns, different realities that you don't necessarily plan for. and how do you make decisions for the group and for each individual in time. So as we kind of unpack that and reflect on that, I think that sounds like leadership in a lot of ways, right? Not knowing what to expect every step of the way, but being able to evaluate and make decisions for those that you lead.
Have you seen like any specific patterns emerge from that? Like, as people have been going through these kinds of things and experiences.
Yeah, what I think is a consistent key takeaway is that, putting this in a leadership development program, it's one of the things that people remember most. And I think where people remember things, that means that learning has occurred. And when you break down the learning, it's a lot about revealing strengths that we have as leaders with things that go well in the simulation, and bringing awareness to blind spots, which is good for all of us as well, right? It's not a matter of, do I have a blind spot? It's more of, what are my blind spots as a human? And right. Being aware of that and being able to, get support with those things as well is been helpful for people. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's like us, as we all grow and learn, we become sometimes like much more aware of these things. The more we know, the more we also understand we don't know about the world. And that's definitely been the case for me. Growing in the, I've always had the role of a CEO and a founder of this company, but the company has evolved so much over the years that my role is completely different. And when we set out to build things, I had completely different ideas of what it takes to scale up the business than where we are today. And it's been quite fascinating to see that development also with the teams around us. And of course, the key thing that we're all thinking about is how can we enable others to learn and grow and scale with the businesses.
Oh, that's brilliant. And it's awesome to hear a bit of your story as CEO and as co-founder. And also, I know some of the work that I had done previously with Florian, with Sana and team at Ivan. It's been great to see all the things that are happening in the learning space there as well. It's exciting to see how you're supporting teams. So it's great to hear that.
Yeah. Thanks for highlighting some of our team members there. And I know you've been working together with them on a couple of topics. And I think one key thing that we do see in especially in the tech industry is really the diversity and inclusion and equity in the industry. And unfortunately, I think we can all say that it's not quite as diverse as we'd hope it is. And you can see this being more pronounced, for example, in the developer communities. How do you see that, and how do you see organizations successfully promoting diversity in tech roles, and what kind of strategies seem to be working or not working in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is definitely a critical issue that we see globally for sure, and opportunities there as well to learn from what's going well in companies that, are really nurturing inclusive leadership, looking at equitable processes as well. When I look at this and the experiences that I've had, both now and before with previous company that I worked with, I look at it in two ways. There's this idea of what companies can do at large. And then there's, what can we do as individuals from within the company day in and day out? And when I look at large, the more organizations can embed DE&I into their values as an organization and their expectations, especially in leadership, the better. So, a lot of companies will have values or leadership principles or, behavior frameworks, and championing inclusion, having that be a part of that really keeps it at the center of organizational decisions and behaviors. The other thing that I think about with that as well is making it an active part of strategy. So looking at... Apologies. I think you heard my doorbell.
Yeah, no worries. So, Micah, thanks for highlighting the importance of baking D&I really in the core values or behaviors of the company. But can you give a couple of like practical tips on how to make that live and how to roll that out in our organization? So it's not just words on a wall, but it's actually in our everyday work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think two things that I've found that works quite well is really looking at making it a part of your strategy in the organization, and then also following it up with data and learning support. So in strategy, looking at, okay, we know that diversity gives us strength in any organization. Diversity of thought and representation is really important. So as we look at the current makeup of any organization, do we see where there's gaps, for example, where we have a strategic effort to fill those gaps? So maybe representation of women in tech is an opportunity. So having that be a part of a strategy to recruit women in tech, knowing that it brings, diversity of experience, it adds to innovation and creativity. I think making that step and from a strategy perspective is really, really a great decision to make for any organization. Just with a hypothetical example there. And I think on the other side of that is, looking at, transparency of data. One of the things that we're looking at right now for all of our functional leaders, so typically our directors and above, a bit of a dashboard to look at representation in their functions and in their teams. So what does that representation look like across different underrepresented groups? And also, what does that mean as far as talent acquisition? So when we're looking at hiring the best talent, how can we fill those gaps in order to increase representation? So I think those are, two main things that kind of come out for me. And then the last thing is really about, the daily leadership development experiences that we can support managers with. So asking for feedback, are there blind spots or things that you see where, in my approach as a leader that I can do differently? What are maybe unconscious biases that I might be holding that I can be made aware of in order to work through them myself? It's okay to have those. We're all human. We all have those. And so asking for that feedback and gaining more awareness around those things can be really helpful. And I think that's really where that inclusive leadership comes in, by having those learning experiences and providing that kind of support.
Yeah, really interesting. How do you see the role of companies like ours in developing more of that more diverse talent? Often when I speak with leaders who are looking to recruit more new people to their teams, they're saying like, oh, I would love to make the team more diverse, but all the senior talent that I can find basically looks exactly like myself. So I'm often pushing back on this, like, hey, it's also our role to build up that talent, but it's not easy, is it? Like, how do you see that question?
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy one. I think, if there were companies that really got all of this right, then we would all be flocking to see what are they doing differently. I think that's, we're all trying to really learn how to do this in an effective way. And I think from experiences I've had, I've been a part of organizations that have gone from hyper growth to sustainable growth and growing not just quickly, but then trying to keep that growth over time. And one of the challenges that I think can provide a nice opportunity is slowing down sometimes in the hiring process and keeping roles open a bit longer in order to find that diverse talent. We do know from research, we do know from adult learning research that having different voices at the table really does add to innovation. And sometimes slowing down in the recruiting process can help with finding that unique talent.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight as well. And often when I think about this, it's you can have a discussion about like, what do we need as a business? What are we trying to achieve? There's also a question of when are we trying to achieve this? Do we have to solve this problem tomorrow? If so, we probably need somebody who's been there and done that. But if we're thinking about having a bigger impact in a medium and long-term time frame, I think we can definitely look at other options, and that's something that I constantly find myself reminding people of.
It's so true that the when question is a pivotal one as well, and what support is needed in order to get to that goal within that time frame. It's so true, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned the sustainability word a couple of times, and I was wondering, about kind of your insights into sustainability. Often, I think in tech, when we speak about sustainability and ESG, we actually focus on the E part and understanding the carbon footprint of our companies. But there is also the S and G to ESG. So how do you think about how do organizations integrate sustainability principles into leadership, especially within talent and culture development?
Yeah, this is great. I think for one of the things that we've been doing is working more closely with our CSR team. So looking at, sustainability, looking at the social corporate responsibility that we have as well. And for me, similarly to the last question, I look at it as, the org-wide perspective and the individual responsibilities we have as members of the organization, as employees of the greater organization. And being able to bring that relationship closer together naturally increases awareness and responsibility. So for example, when I think about, currently the things that we look at with rider sustainability, how are we looking at, the safety of our cyclists and really supporting with reducing our carbon footprint there by having cyclists over having, automobiles delivery, right? Or looking at sustainable packaging as well. So trying to really work with restaurant partners and work with providers of using more sustainable packaging in food as well. And you hear about different industries, with transportation, about, car sharing services, carpooling, with transportation as well. And in my last organization, I remember we used to highlight hotels that were sustainably focused, right? And how they operated with their daily kind of routines and really promoting them on the websites. So I think there's that component that organizations do in many different industries. But then how do we break that down in decisions we make as leaders and as teams? And I think, when people are onboarded into an organization, being able to learn about CSR efforts and sustainability efforts is really important in onboarding to show what companies are doing in this space. But then I think, how does that translate into travel decisions that we make? Can we take a train as opposed to flying? And making that a part of those daily conversations as well to reduce our own carbon footprint individually when we're traveling. I think, when we reflect on the last few years with COVID, with the pandemic, we've learned a lot about connecting remotely and a lot about hybrid work and how that also can be quite beneficial in certain ways as well when it comes to being sustainable. And so these are the things that we can do daily that make a difference in how we live.
Yeah, that's very true. Like during the pandemic, I think we all went into the pandemic already having access to a lot of tools that would allow us to travel less, but we were still so used to traveling even very long distances for one single meeting. But I've definitely now traveled a lot less since the pandemic than I did before that. But I think something you said earlier about, so how can we also bake these ESG thinking and sustainability principles into our products and services is a key thing. We can all make sure that in our day-to-day office work, for example, we are taking more sustainable approach to things. But how do we really create products that allow you to and allow the customers and users of those products to make better choices? One thing that we're doing at Ivan is to provide more visibility into the emissions, for example, of the cloud services that we run on behalf of our customers across different regions. So depending a little bit on where in the world you are, the emissions from your cloud services can be quite different. I'm based here in Finland, where some can say that the weather sucks most of the year, but others can say that it helps us cool things more efficiently most of the year.
Oh, that's yeah. And I think that's it's a brilliant example, and it's great to hear the work that you're doing here in Ivan in this space. I think one of the things that I really enjoy is hearing these strategic initiatives and how it makes a difference. And I think the more we connect across industries and companies, we can hear about these things that are working. Because I think we all know with what's happening in climate change, it's important to continue this dialogue and see what we can do. So that's really, really nice to hear. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Micah. Thanks for sharing your experiences. That's what this is all about, and it was so great to hear from you your thoughts on these important topics. So thanks for joining us today.
Oskari, thank you as well. Definitely an honor and a highlight. I appreciate you carving up the time as well and having me over. And same to Florian and the team as well. Always great to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower? And importantly, what would be your superhero name?
Ooh, I love this question. Working at Delivery Hero, a superhero question. My power would be teleportation for sure. I think, being able to connect with people that are very dear to me, and being able to go quickly around the world in real time would be a great power to have. And a name for teleportation, something fast, maybe blink.
Cool.
At the blink of an eye, I'm somewhere else in the world.
All right. Well, on that track, would you share a memorable or a fun travel experience you've had with us?
Do you know this past year, there's one that comes to mind this summer. We were traveling to Portugal in the south in the Algarve area. And some friends of ours were visiting from New York. And one of the days we were, coming up from the beach, and there was a musician that was playing and singing. And, it was nice. It was like kind of like soft, relaxing music. And we were like, why not? Let's just, let's dance. There was like this open square in front of the musician. So we started dancing to the music. And literally it was almost like a movie scene where within like a few minutes, more people started joining. And then before you knew it, a few songs in, there were over 100 people dancing together with this musician. And I just thought that was a really cool, fun memory. It's, it felt like we were part of a movie scene there for a moment.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Oskari. Great questions. Yeah, those are fun. Yeah.
All right. I guess that wraps up our session today. So thank you so much again, Micah.
Thank you, Oskari. Thank you.